He was a billionaire, one of the wealthiest men in Africa. His name was Femi Mosa. From the outside, his life seemed like a dream: mansions in Lagos and Abuja, private jets that could take him anywhere in the world, fleets of luxury cars, and businesses spread across oil, real estate, and international trade. Newspapers celebrated him as a man of vision. Business magazines called him the king of investments. But deep inside, Femi Mosa carried a secret weight. Despite all his wealth, his heart was empty. People surrounded him, but very few truly cared for him. Friends praised him for favors, women admired him for his fortune, and employees respected him only for his power. In moments of silence, when he looked at his reflection in the mirror of his grand estate, he asked himself one question. Am I loved for who I am, or for what I have? Not far from the shining skyscrapers of Lagos, in a small neighborhood filled with dusty roads and broken houses, lived a young woman named Amina. She was the daughter of a mechanic, and when her father passed away, she inherited his tiny garage. Life had not been kind to her. With calloused hands and oil-stained clothes, she worked tirelessly, fixing cars and motorbikes to earn just enough to feed herself and pay rent for her small one-room home. Most men laughed at her, saying, "A woman cannot survive in this field." But Amina never gave up. Her strength was not in her arms but in her spirit. Every night, she sat by the lamp in her small room, whispering a prayer. God, I do not want riches. I only ask for dignity and peace. One Friday evening, destiny began to weave their lives together. Femi Mosa, tired of endless meetings and fake smiles, decided to drive himself to his countryside villa. He wanted to feel normal again. He took one of his most prized possessions, a black Rolls-Royce that shined under the African moonlight. The road stretched endlessly, cutting through villages and farmland. The night was calm, but within Femi's heart, there was unrest. And then, something unexpected happened. His car, worth more than most houses, suddenly coughed, slowed, and finally came to a stop in the middle of a deserted road. Femi frowned in disbelief. Impossible. He tried restarting the engine, but it refused to obey. His phone had no signal, and the silence of the night surrounded him like a heavy cloak. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Minutes turned into an hour, and not a single car passed. Just when frustration was about to consume him, he heard faint footsteps approaching. Out of the shadows appeared a young woman, carrying a small toolbox, her face marked with grease, her overalls worn but practical. It was Amina. She looked at the car, then at the man standing beside it, and said with a calm but confident tone, "Seems like your fancy car has given up on you." Her words cut through the silence. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to Femi without fear, without reverence, without flattery. She saw not a billionaire, not a powerful tycoon, but just a man stranded on the road. And that night, on a lonely stretch of road, under the stars of Africa, the worlds of a billionaire and a poor mechanic collided. It was the beginning of a story neither of them expected. The night air was cool, filled with the soft chorus of crickets. The great Rolls-Royce stood like a fallen king on the roadside, its hood slightly steaming. Femi Mosa, used to being surrounded by drivers, assistants, and technicians, suddenly found himself helpless. And then, there was Amina, the poor mechanic with her small toolbox. She studied him for a moment, as if trying to read his soul. He wore an elegant designer suit, his watch sparkling under the moonlight, but at that moment none of it mattered. "Pop the hood," she said plainly, walking toward the car. Femi blinked. He was not used to being commanded, especially not by a stranger, and certainly not by a woman in greasy overalls. Yet something about her voice, firm, unapologetic, made him obey without protest. With a click, the hood rose. Amina leaned forward, her fingers moving quickly, eyes scanning every part of the engine. Femi finally broke the silence. "You know how to handle this?" She smirked, wiping her hands on a rag. Do I look like I carry a toolbox for decoration? Femi chuckled softly, an unusual laugh that surprised even himself. There was no pretense in her tone, no attempt to impress him. The mechanic at work. For the next 20 minutes, Amina worked diligently. Her hands, though rough, moved with precision and skill. She checked the spark plugs, tightened a few connections, and murmured to herself as she diagnosed the problem. Femi watched in silence. For the first time in his life, he admired not wealth, not beauty dressed in luxury, but pure dedication. Finally, Amina looked up. Your engine is overheating. Whoever serviced this car last didn't do their job right. I've fixed it temporarily, you should take it to a garage tomorrow for a full check. Femi raised an eyebrow. Do you realize how much this car is worth? Yes, she replied without hesitation, closing the hood firmly. And do you realize it doesn't matter how expensive it is if you don't know how to take care of it? Her words hit him harder than she knew. It wasn't just about the car. It was about life itself. Two different worlds. Femi studied her closely now. Her clothes were stained, her hair tied back carelessly, her shoes worn out. But her eyes carried strength, pride, and a quiet fire that no poverty could dim. Who are you? He finally asked. A mechanic, she replied simply. My name is Amina. This road passes near my workshop. I heard your car struggling from a distance. Engines, they speak to me. Femi tilted his head, impressed. A female mechanic. That's rare. She met his gaze sharply. Poverty doesn't care if you're a man or a woman. Survival makes you learn what others say you cannot do. Silence lingered between them. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to Femi with no fear, no calculation. It was raw. It was real. Femi reached into his pocket, pulling out a thick wad of cash. He extended it toward her. Here. Take this, for your help. Amina looked at the money, then at him. Her lips curved into a half-smile. You're generous, but I didn't help you for money. I helped you because you needed it. Keep your cash, billionaire. For a second, Femi froze. She knows who I am. Amina chuckled softly. Everyone in this city knows who Femi Mosa is. But tonight, on this road, you were just a man stranded with a broken car. That's all I saw. Femi slowly lowered his hand. Something inside him shifted. Here was a woman who refused his money, who wasn't dazzled by his power. And in that moment, under the starlit African sky, Femi Mosa, the man who had everything, felt he had just met someone truly priceless. Only after a full minute did she raise her eyes, wiping sweat from her brow. You again, she said casually. Car broke down so soon. Femi chuckled, stepping closer. No, my car is fine. But I came to see the mechanic who fixed it. A conversation in the garage. Amina crossed her arms. You don't belong here, Mr. Mosa. This place is for broken machines, not rich men with polished shoes. Femi smiled. Maybe I'm more broken than you think. Her brow furrowed, curiosity flickering in her eyes. For the first time, she sensed a sadness beneath his confident smile. What do you want from me? She asked. Femi looked around the humble garage, the cracked walls, the scattered tools, the little radio playing old African tunes. Then he met her eyes. I want a conversation. Just a conversation. No money, no business. Just time. Amina studied him. All her life, rich men had treated her like she was invisible. And now, the richest of them all stood before her, asking for her time. All right, she finally said. But don't get in my way. I still have cars to fix. And so, as she worked, Femi sat on a small wooden stool, listening. The days that followed were restless for Femi Mosa. He sat through board meetings, luxury dinners, and endless calls with international partners, yet his mind wandered back to that narrow street, to the girl with oil-stained hands and fearless eyes. He had met countless women in his life, models, actresses, women from wealthy families. But none of them had ever looked at him the way Amina did, as if his billions meant nothing. Femi's restlessness. Late at night, sitting in his study with the city lights glowing beneath his mansion, he stared out the window. His assistant knocked gently. "Sir, tomorrow you have an important meeting with the European investors." Femi didn't move. His gaze was lost in thought. For the first time, he realized money had given him power, but not peace. The memory of Amina's simple words echoed in his heart. Respect is worth more than gold. Amina's struggles. Meanwhile, across the city, Amina's life remained the same. Her garage buzzed with customers, battered taxis, old trucks, motorbikes sputtering with smoke. But now, something had changed inside her too. She had seen the man behind the fortune. She had seen loneliness hidden under fine suits and polished shoes. And though she tried to push the thought aside, Femi Mosa's face returned to her mind more often than she cared to admit. Still, her reality was harsh. Her siblings needed school fees. Her mother's health was fragile. Every coin she earned was stretched thin. Dreaming was a luxury she could not afford. The chance encounter. One humid evening, as Amina closed her workshop, she noticed a familiar black car parked nearby. The door opened, and there he was, Femi Mosa himself. She frowned slightly. "You again?" Femi smiled, his tone light but his eyes serious. "Yes. I couldn't stay away." The neighbors began to whisper, peeking from their windows. A billionaire standing in front of a poor mechanic's shop was a sight no one had ever seen. The walk. Instead of inviting her into his world, Femi asked something unexpected. "Will you walk with me?" Amina hesitated, but curiosity won. They strolled through the narrow street, past fruit sellers calling out prices, children chasing one another, and women carrying baskets on their heads. For the first time in years, Femi felt grounded. No cameras. No bodyguards hovering too close. Just life, raw and unfiltered. Amina glanced at him and said, "This is the real Africa, Femi. Not the one you see from glass towers." He nodded quietly. "I think this is what I've been missing. A world divided." But not everyone shared that sentiment. From the corner of the street, a group of men whispered among themselves. "That's Femi Mosa, isn't it? What's he doing here with a mechanic girl? He'll bring shame to his name if he keeps this up." The word spread like wildfire. By the next morning, newspapers carried blurry photographs. "Billionaire seen with poor mechanic woman, who is she?" In Amina's neighborhood, gossip turned cruel. Some called her ambitious, a gold digger chasing wealth. Others mocked her family, saying she wanted to trap the billionaire. The news had spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed across tabloids and gossip blogs. Billionaire Femi Mosa spotted with local mechanic woman. Love or scandal? The mystery girl of Africa's richest man. Some called it romantic. But most called it shameful. The weight of gossip. In Amina's neighborhood, whispers followed her everywhere. When she walked to the market, women giggled behind her back. "Look at her, thinking she can reach for the stars. She'll only get her heart broken." One evening, as she worked in her garage, a group of wealthy young women pulled up in shiny cars. They stepped out, wearing designer dresses and mocking smiles. "So you're the girl," one sneered. "The one who thinks she can catch a billionaire with grease on her hands?" The others laughed cruelly. Amina wiped her hands on a rag, her voice steady. "I don't need to prove myself to you. I work hard, and I live honestly. That is enough." But as their laughter faded into the night, Amina's heart ached. She wondered, could she ever truly belong in Femi's world? When word of Amina's humiliation reached Femi, his blood boiled. He sat in his office, fists clenched. For years, people had respected him, even feared him. But now, they dared to insult the one woman who mattered most. He called his assistant. "Prepare the car. Tonight, I'm going to Amina's garage." The sun had barely set when his convoy arrived, drawing curious eyes from the whole neighborhood. Children ran to the street, adults whispered in awe. Femi stepped out, not in his usual suit, but in a simple shirt. His presence was magnetic, commanding silence. He walked straight into the garage, where Amina stood nervously. "Why are you here, Femi?" she asked softly. His voice carried strength. "Because I want the world to hear it from me, not from rumors." He turned toward the gathering crowd. "Listen to me. This woman, Amina, is not beneath me. She is not a scandal. She is the reason I am rediscovering life. She helped me when I was just another man stranded by the roadside. She didn't see my billions, she saw me. And if you cannot respect her, then you do not respect me." The crowd was stunned. Some clapped, some remained silent. But the message was clear: Femi Mosa had chosen his side. Amina's tears. Amina's eyes welled with tears, not from weakness, but from relief. For so long, she had carried the weight of gossip, the sting of cruel words. Now, standing beside her, Femi had lifted that burden. She whispered, "You didn't have to do this." Femi smiled gently. "Yes, I did. Because respect is worth more than gold. Isn't that what you told me?" Her lips curved into the smallest smile, but her heart was racing. The backlash. The next morning, the media erupted again. Billionaire defends mechanic girl in public speech. Femi Mosa stands by his mysterious love. Some admired his courage. Others mocked him more fiercely than ever. Business partners warned him. "Your reputation is at risk. Investors may walk away." But Femi's resolve was iron. He had built empires before, and he could build them again. But a woman like Amina? He knew he would never find again. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Femi Mosa's life. Investors pulled back. Board members questioned his judgment. Newspapers mocked him with cruel headlines. Has Africa's brightest billionaire lost his mind for love? For the first time, Femi's empire shook. Amina's decision. Late one evening, Amina sat quietly in her small garage. The oil lamp flickered, shadows dancing across her weary face. She whispered to herself, "He is losing everything because of me. Maybe I should walk away before it destroys him completely." Her heart cracked at the thought, but she knew sacrifice was sometimes the truest form of love. The next morning, when Femi arrived, she met him with trembling lips. "Femi, this must end. You belong to a world I cannot enter. I will only hold you back." For a moment, silence cut between them like a knife. But then, Femi stepped closer, eyes burning with determination. "You think wealth defines me? No, Amina. Without you, I am the poorest man alive. You gave me strength, honesty, and love, things money can never buy. If I must lose everything else to keep you, then so be it." Amina's tears fell freely. She realized nothing, not power, not pride, not fear, could shake this man's devotion. The turning point. And then, fate intervened. One of Femi's biggest factories faced a crisis. A mechanical fault threatened millions in damages. Engineers struggled, but the machines remained dead. Femi, desperate, turned to the only person he trusted. "Amina, will you help me?" Without hesitation, she put on her work clothes and entered the factory floor. Grease on her hands, sweat on her brow, she worked tirelessly through the night. When the sun rose, the machines roared back to life. Workers cheered. Investors were stunned. News spread fast. Mechanic girl saves billionaire's empire. The very woman society mocked had become the reason Femi's business survived. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Journalists who once ridiculed her now praised her brilliance. She is not just his love, she is his partner, his savior. Femi stood before the press, proudly holding Amina's hand. She is proof that greatness is not born of wealth, but of courage. This woman, Amina, is my future, and together, we will build more than empires. We will build hope. The crowd erupted in applause. Months later, under the golden African sun, their wedding took place. It was not a lavish display of diamonds and gold, but a beautiful blend of two worlds. Wealthy guests sat beside humble neighbors. Suits mingled with colorful traditional dresses. And when Amina walked down the aisle, wearing a simple white gown stitched by local hands, the crowd rose to their feet. Femi's eyes shone with tears. She was no longer the poor mechanic. She was his queen. Their love became a legend. Children were told, remember the story of Femi Mosa and Amina, the billionaire and the mechanic who proved that true wealth is found not in riches, but in the strength of the human heart. And in every corner of Africa, their tale carried a message of hope. That no matter how different two souls may seem, love can bridge the widest divide. And so, dear listeners, the story of Femi Mosa and Amina comes to an end. A tale of love, struggle, sacrifice, and triumph. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the African Folk Tales. More powerful stories await you, stories of life, love, and hope.